Hey, what's up? Now, this next video, I'll be showing you all about cross-site scripting, the mitigations, how to attack it, and where to find it and all that sort of stuff. Now, I'll be going through the Portswigger videos and also some other practice labs as well that will get you ready for finding cross-site scripting vulnerabilities on real-life applications. Now, there's a lot of tools I'm going to go over as well, which would be really, really good. And I'm also going to provide one of my own tools I've created that helped me find 5 XSS in about, I think it was about 1 XSS in about 5 minutes. It was a tool I created with JavaScript. It was a Firefox extension, and I'll show you that later, upcoming. Now, enjoy these videos. Enjoy the cross-site scripting video, and I will see you soon, and you will get started in finding cross-site scripting. Talk to you later. Okay, so let's get started. So the very first thing we want to do is download Burp. Burp is the interception proxy that sits between the browser and the website, and it intercepts all the traffic coming through it. Now, I'm going to just use Burp 1.7.32. This is my my Burp I downloaded from a site. It's cracked, so I could try and provide the link as well where you can download the cracked version. So I'll just load this up. So it's in my desktop, and I've got it saved as Burp Pro 1.7.32 master. I just opened that up, and I just opened up the keygen. So I open up that, and then I run it. Now, when we run this, we need to set up our proxy. So I'm going to first show you how to set up Burp and how to set up its proxy, so we can intercept the traffic. And this is what's used with all the website pen testing, all the hacking. You use Burp probably 80% of the time, and automation will be the remaining 20. So I'll just delete that. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So it's asking us, do I want to create a temporary project or new project on disk, so that will save it to disk. I'm just going to do a temporary project because we can always save it afterwards. So I'll go next, and I'll use Burp defaults. Start Burp. And when this starts, I should be able to open up Firefox. So obviously it's got the intercept on. We just want to turn that off, and we want to go to our proxy and our options and see what the proxies are listening on. So it's listening on 127.0.0.1 on port 8080. That's the local host that it's listening on. Now we open up a Firefox. I'll just use Burp, and I'll go to my options, and I'll go to settings, and I'll make sure manual proxy configuration is set, and it's set to the same port. So 127.0.0.1 on port 8080, and use this proxy server for all protocols. This has to match up with what's in here. And we save that. Now, when you're a first-time user, you need to make sure to install the Burp CA certificate. So you go Burp, just type in that there, Burp / and then you can download the CA certificate onto your computer, onto disk, and then you just go into Firefox, and then you just install the certificate in privacy and security, and in whereabouts are we? In certificates. You go view certificates, and then you just import it, select it, and then go next, trust all, and then install, and it should be done. Now when that's done, you should be able to then capture HTTPS requests. So there you go, that's done. Now, one of the tools that we're going to be using a lot of the time is NoXSS. This is a really good tool for finding cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, whether it's DOM, whether it's stored, whether it's reflected, or things like that. Even find some basic SQL injection. So I'm going to show you how to set up this tool, and I'm going to show you what is cross-site scripting and how to mitigate it first, and then we'll dive into the attacks. So what you can do is you can either buy it. It's about let's have a look. It's $150 per year. That's what I bought it. Or there's also a community version in the Firefox extension browser. So it only works for Firefox, but the advantage of the $150 one is it finds XSS for all cases. So get and post HTTP methods, source-based XSS file. It does a lot of different stuff. That's all what it does there. But $90 you get a little bit less, $6 you get a bit less, and then with the free, You only get XSS finding using get and post HTTP methods and source-based cross-site scripting. You don't get everything else. But free is enough for us. We'll just do free for in our case. I've got the paid one, but we'll just use the free one. Now, when you want to install no XSS, you want to basically go to our options. Sorry, no, not our options. Our customize. Nope, sorry, my bad. Where are we? Extensions. Add-ons, sorry, add-ons. We want to go to add-ons and we want to go to extensions and we want to search for no XSS. And that will pop up in the add-ons for Mozilla. And there'll be one there for the community version. So you just go ahead and install that like so. Add to Firefox and it will work. And then what we want to do is we'll just go to a no XSS test page. So we'll go no XSS and just use a test page. So, sorry, Brute Logic test page. By the way, Brute Logic actually created no XSS. Brute Logic is a really good XSS researcher. So I recommend if you have any questions about no XSS to just give him a message or DM through Twitter and he will help you straight away. Such a good bloke. It's awesome. Okay, so what we need to do to test this page here, this little application, it's a cross-site scripting test application that Brute Logic made. This is to see if actually no XSS works. This is to practice no XSS. So what we do is, all we need to do is just turn on no XSS for this host and then just start typing random garbage text. You find, and then what will happen is you'll find that sorry, I need to log in. With the community version, you don't need to log in. For some reason, with the paid one, you need to log in. So I'll just do this. Buses. God, I hate these captures. There you go, log in. Now, okay, cool. Let's go log in. Well, I think you do need to register and become a user to report it. I'm not sure. So now I'll just reload this page, resend. It's basically going to read you what I did, and you'll find that there will be a pop under. Let's reactivate that and just do it again. There you go. Awesome, it worked. So as you can see, I just typed fill in this post request here, fill in this form. It's going to be a post request, and then it then tries injecting all these payloads into the form, and you'll find that in the path, this was actually the payload used, and it was vulnerable to cross-site scripting. So usually when there's a pop under, it's vulnerable, and then it shows you a proof of concept. Done. Now from there onwards, you would write a report, you would send them the report in, and we'll go into report writing later on in future videos. This is all about cross-site scripting, not report writing. So then it even shows you up there in the top right-hand corner that it's vulnerable to XSS. It's marked in red. I'll just show that. It's marked in red right there. So that's vulnerable to cross-site scripting. And that's basically no XSS. If you want to test this out, you can just do that, turn it off, and then just paste it in, and it should work. But usually, just a tip, if you're doing, found a cross-site scripting vulnerability, don't just put in a 1 as the alert form, as alert pop-up. 1's not going to give you a higher bounty. Try and escalate it. Try and inject a keylogger into the application. Try and find out the cookies. Try and escalate it to further, escalate the vulnerability. Try and find an XSS keylogger or other XSS attacks that will give you a higher bounty. So 1 is probably not a good idea. You need to inject something else or try and find a different way of explaining XSS that's more impact. Leads to bigger bounties. So let's have a look at what cross-site scripting actually is. Actually, I'll just go. I can explain it, and I'll go to a website to show you what it is. So I'll go to. I'm just trying to think. We'll just go to Portswigger, because we need to do those examples too. So what I'll do is just go to Portswigger up here, web security. Just log it in first on my second screen. I'm gonna have some coffee. Okay, here we go. All right, so Academy, just put that over there. So we've got the Academy, and then we want cross-site scripting, which is down there. Okay, so I'm going to explain it the way I explain it. So cross-site scripting is an injection attack whereby an attacker can inject malicious scripts into web forms, links, post requests, GET requests, anywhere in the application. And if it's not filtered out any of the special characters, if it hasn't got any sanitization or user supplied input sanitization, it's going to be vulnerable to cross-site scripting. So it's just an injection attack. How they explain it is cross-site scripting, also known as XSS. I'm reading it right there. It's also known as XSS. Is a web security vulnerability that allows an attacker to compromise the interactions that users have with a vulnerable application. It allows an attacker to circumvent the same origin policy, which is designed to segregate different websites from each other. Cross-site scripting vulnerabilities normally allow the attacker to masquerade as a victim user, to carry out any actions that the user is able to perform, and to access any of the user's data. If the victim user has privileged access with the application, then the attacker might be able to gain full control over all the application's functionality and data. So let's go into some different types of cross-site scripting. So here we go. That's just basically how it works there. So you might have a URL right there. And then you might by manipulating this URL to inject JavaScript. It will then, what this is doing is script source equals HTTPS. Just wait, I'm going to turn on my mouse cursor. Just wait a minute. So this URL here, in the message parameter is vulnerable to cross-site scripting. So injecting a script source, so the source is going to it's going to actually display an evil URL with a bad evil JavaScript, a malicious JavaScript. So what this is doing is including a malicious JavaScript code. And so what happens is this could be some sort of keylogger, some sort of cookie theft script. And what they're doing is they're typing in so the user, the hacker is injecting it into the form. The user either types in their username and password. Then the password goes directly through the wire to the attacker. So there's different types of cross-site scripting. There's reflected XSS, which is usually a client-side attack, where you only inject it into the client side, into the website, and only the client is attacked with it or is compromised with it. So where the malicious script comes from the current HTTP request. And stored XSS is very, very bad. That's probably one of the worst. Well, it is one of the worst, because stored XSS is where you might have some sort of submit form or a comment section or about page where you inject the JavaScript into the field or into the form and submit it to the server, and it gets stored onto the server side. So any victim is vulnerable to it. So say someone overseas injected a stored cross-site scripting on I found a stored cross-site scripting on PayPal in the login form, and then they set up a phishing page. So what happens if I'm from here, if I log into that PayPal account, because it's vulnerable to stored XSS and has a malicious script injected into it, they will get my credentials. So anyone that views that PayPal account or logs into PayPal the hacker will get their credentials. So if that makes sense, it's hard to explain, but stored XSS, what says here is where the malicious script comes from the website's database. So DOM-based XSS is generally found in JavaScript. Is when you read the JavaScript and you look for sources and sinks. We'll get to that later. So where the vulnerability exists in the client-side code rather than the server-side code. And then it just goes through what reflected XSS, how to attack it and stuff. But we're going to just do a very basic one, which is going to be reflected XSS. We'll do one of these ones. I'm also going to show you some tools. I'm going to show you a bit I'm going to show you around Burp, and I'm going to show you how to use no XSS. And I'm also going to show you one of my tools I created. Okay, so this is reflected XSS into HTML context with nothing encoded. Let's do that one. Let's access a lab, and it's asking us to just perform a simple alert. And we'll just go to here. It says about proxies in Firefox are running that. Okay, so we run that. I'm going to show you how to do it in Burp first. I'm going to show you how to do it with NoXSS and in my tool. So generally, is there's probably multiple ways to do it in Burp. You can either just simply first of all, I want to actually add this to the scope, so I want to do that. Wait a minute. Just want to add. No, I won't do that. So what we do generally is you would have do a subdomain enumeration, and you would put all the targets. You would select use advanced scope control. You would put all the subdomains in here by loading it from a file, and then you would just go sort by in scope item only, and then parameterize requests to find XSS. But we'll just keep it the way it is. So what we want to do is we want to find this one here. This is the one that we're testing. So let's just go to the actually, I'm going to just add it because it's a little bit harder to actually not to see all these other out of scope requests. So let's just add that. So now what we can do, well, we can use advanced scope, which is better. Then we just go show in scope only, and it's going to only show that one. Then from there onwards, we can set up a spider as well. So we can go to our spider, start the spider, and then select max depth link. So we just do 10. And also set the threads to 100. And if it's a login form, you can specify your credentials and username, password for your so it submits the login, so it has further things to spider. Now spider this. As you can see, there's a post ID. We'll test that. But I'm just going to show you some tools that you can use for some extensions you can use for cross-site scripting. So a good one is where is it? It's Reflected, it's called. I think it's called Reflector. I'll just sort by popularity. It's called Reflected Parameters. So just go to Reflected Parameters and install that. And also another good one is where is it? This one here. So this will test for cross-site scripting. This will tell you if it's vulnerable or not. So install that one. And once they're installed, you can just basically spider it. And it will tell you all the reflected parameters right here. But just browse first. So we'll basically browse the application a bit, just so we can map out to figure out the attack surface and map out the target a bit. So we're just going to type in random characters there. I'm going to go back to blog. So obviously that got reflected back, so that's good. That's a good sign it could be vulnerable to cross-site scripting. We'll view the post. Just click on a few links. And then we'll see what we got into our proxy history or in our target. So we got some resources, images, JavaScript, which will be useful for figuring out DOM XSS, and a post request. So we got that. Let's go to reflected. Here we go. So our reflection, there's actually ASDF that's been reflected in a response. So if you look at that, if you type in ASDF, it got reflected right in the response. This is a big indication that it could be vulnerable to cross-site scripting. Could be, because it still might be filtering out characters that we need to inject or break out of the HTML tags. So what we can do is we can send this to Central, and that will then automatically test for cross-site scripting. So let's let that go. And this is another way of testing to see it's vulnerable. It will say there it's vulnerable if it's vulnerable. Status good. Request OK. So it's going through fuzzing each parameter. I found that by injecting that, it was vulnerable to cross-site scripting. So we found a cross-site scripting vulnerability in this parameter. Okay, so then what we want to do is we want to send that to the repeater and start just testing away. So we know that it's not filtering out the angled brackets or the angled characters greater than or less than, and quote. This is perfect. This means it's vulnerable. So let's then just go quote and then less than, and let's see if that gets filtered or not. We go ASDF. As you can see, it did not get filtered. So if that was filtered, it would be like percentage something. It would be Euro encoded, or it'd have like some sort of HTML encoding. So it's not vulnerable. Sorry, it is vulnerable very badly. So we broke out of that tag. Let's just inject our own custom JavaScript. So let's go image source equals, I'll just do a simple payload, script alert 1 script, like that. It's asking us to inject a alert box. So that's what we're going to do. Let's just see what that looks like. Perfect. See, it's in the correct syntax. It's got the JavaScript injected. Now let's copy that. Let's actually now let's render the page and see what it does. Okay, cool. That's good. Let's copy this URL and let's turn off the proxy. We didn't need the proxy, and let's paste in the URL here. And you'll find that it should pop up with 1. Perfect. It popped up with 1. We injected our own JavaScript. It's vulnerable to cross-site scripting. Boom, we did it. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. That's one way of doing it with burp tools. So remember, you just download the programs from extensions extender, burp store, and then you just send each request to Central. The ones that get reflected. The ones that get reflected, you send to Central. That's one way, or you can just manually do it. So you might just go to your proxy options, and you might go something like you might go for your proxy match and replace. You might go add, and you might go, okay, so in the request parameter name, actually request parameter value, we'll type in ASDF, and if that's a match, we replace it with this. See, this works. And we don't need to do a regex. So then what we do now is we don't need to set up the proxy. We just type in something like ASDF, and it will match that. The proxy will match that and replace it with the JavaScript code, and hopefully pop it in that box. Boom, it did the same thing. So that means you can just go to each field and just type in ASDF, or you can make it do, instead of ASDF, you can do just XSS, and it will just inject that payload into the replace the ASDF with the payload. That's a good way to do it manually, just by typing into each parameter or each field. Then there's no XSS. So that's another way of doing it. So let's go here. Let's turn on no XSS, and then it says reload the page. And then with that, you can type in anything. So you just type in don't even have to. Oh, and so there, I found one. So if I go to allow pop-ups from this domain, you'll see that it's found it. It actually searched the page and found, this is actually the DOM XSS one. Okay, I found DOM XSS. So yeah, I actually found it in the search parameter. So it does it all for you. That's pretty cool. It must have crawled and everything. That's cool. And that's the request there. That's the HTML code for the request. And you can just save the proof of concept, save it, and then it does it. Oh, that's from the old one. So that's from the old one. But yeah, this does it too. No XSS does it too. So let's have a look at ways to create more impact. So ways to create more impact is to either hijack someone's session. So these are the some of the vulnerabilities you can do. Some of the attacks you can do with cross-site scripting is one that's called session fixation. So session fixation is an attack whereby an attacker might steal someone's cookie and replace his with theirs and get access to their account and compromise their user's account. Or you might do some sort of JavaScript keylogger, inject that into a parameter. So then the server will capture all the characters that the client is typing. And there's all sorts of ones. There's redirection. You can do URL redirection. So there's all sorts of ones you can do. And what I'm going to give you some resources for escalating your XSS attacks. So JS keylogger, I think it is. There's a JS keylogger. So an XSS keylogger. And this is just reflected XSS. There's also stored and DOM, and there's also blind XSS, believe it or not. So an XSS keylog is what you want. And no, not that one. Maybe it's called JS keylogger. I think it is. Yeah, I think it's called JS keylogger. or is there one called XSS shell? Just trying to find XSS shell. XSS shell. Here it is. So this is a good one for escalating your XSS attacks and get more impact. So you can either do an XSS shell, so you get like a server access, or you get access to the client's browser through an XSS shell. Or there's Beef cross-site scripting 2, which is a good one. So Beef XSS is also another good one to actually hijack the victim's browser through any sort of XSS attack. And this is what it does. This comes default with Kali Linux, and is really good for browser exploitation. I'm not going to go through this. I have this on my YouTube videos. Shows you a bit about that. So just access my YouTube videos. It should be down there right now. I'm going to put it right there on my channel, and you should be able to, click on that and view the video. But yeah, you just install it. You set up Beef as a service, and then access the web server, and you can just send someone a JS keylog, a JS hook, and it will get hooked into their browser and get access to their browser. So certain attacks like keyloggers, Beef cross-site scripting attacks where you get access to their browser, things like XSS shells, cookie theft will be good for impact. Now let's go to something different. Let's go to and I'm going to have this page in the description too, in the Patreon post too, and I might have another video I've created, or another video on how to do XSS stealing, or cookie stealing, cookie hijacking it's called, or session fixation. So let's go to another website that's really cool. It's called Dome. We'll do Dome XSS. DomeXSS.com, I think it's called. Yeah, this is it. So this is a good website. This is a website to help with your like to read JavaScript code and look for sinks and sources, and practice use Dome XSS. Also, another one is Dome XSS, finding Dome XSS. So this is a GitHub page with it talks about like finding Dome XSS and what you need to look for, and what sources and sinks are. And these are regular expressions you can use to find Dome XSS. Now, I think with Dome XSS, it's a client-side attack, so you have to look for it in the client-side JavaScript code and figure out a way to inject your cross-site scripting payload. Now, and with sinks, so sinks are potential vulnerable functions. So like you might have $.get, you might have jQuery functions and stuff that are vulnerable to cross-site scripting. You might have something like .get. Then you might have something like API, might have like profile, like name equals, and then you might have plus name, something like that. Then it will that'll print out the name or something. It'll be the name of the profile, and that's where you can inject the XSS payload. But this is what, when you see something like that, you go, okay, I can find out a way to get XSS into there, into the name parameter. So when you have any sort of concatenation in some sort of request, or like in sort of any sort of sink or source, like you might have something like eval. Actually, let's have a look for an example. Let's give you some example code. Let's go to location, document URIs, and sources. So sources are I'm going to go to that. Sources are basically a direct call. So you might have something like document URL. You might have something like, this is just an example code. You might have document URL. Whoops. You might have, oh Jesus. You might have document URL equals and you might have something like https www.google.com, and you might have name equals and then plus name. If you have something like that in the document URL, which would basically be vulnerable to Dome XSS, because if this name, name parameter isn't sanitized, you can inject your own XSS payload in here. So what that would look like if you were to inject your own XSS, if you saw this in JavaScript, you want to do something like this. You'd want to go that, and then something like script alert 1 script, and that should like pop up alert box. But obviously Google isn't vulnerable. This is example code. Then you might look at sources, and you might syncs, sorry, and you might find stuff in the syncs. There's also cookie sources as well, which is good. So if you find things like this in the cookie, you'd want to inject your own payload in there. Like if you see some code like that, get cookie, and you see a bit of code like that, it's vulnerable to DOM XSS. And syncs, this one's called direct execution syncs. So these are potential dangerous functions that could be vulnerable to XSS. So if you see something like any of these bits of code here, they're potentially vulnerable to DOM XSS. Eval is a very dangerous function too. So find anything with eval, test it straight away. Okay, so let's go here and let's find out. Let's start and let's practice analyzing some JavaScript code. Let's look at the simple no head. Let's go there, and the help is like you have to look at the help. It's asking us to execute the function doomed. Let's just copy that, and let's go and read the JavaScript code. So let's right click on here and go to inspect. You can do this in Firefox as well, and then go to sources, and then let's go to simple no head. I think the one we're after is this one here, the simple no head JavaScript file. Perfect. Okay, as you can see here, it's got immediately I looked at it straight away. Hi, right there, hi, and it's got script. It's got a script tag, and it's got position, document URI index of name +5, and then it's got like so obviously it's printing out that in there. So it's getting a document index name of name. So it's getting a URI index of name, and where the name is, it's appending this. And then it's going username as unescape. So unescape is a big. You'll see that and you go, holy shit! I've just found DOM XSS, because unescape means it's not escaping the it's not escaping the document URI substring. It's not escaping. It's not filtering out any special characters. It's got nothing, no mitigations whatsoever. So immediately you'd go, okay, perfect. Let's try and do this. Right there, let's go script, and then go that, and then end it, and then boom. We need to put that. Sorry, we need to put it here. So you first like test out XSS, you test out something. Obviously it's not findable there. So let's try and test out it here. And it puts it there, perfect. So let's go that. Boom, congratulations, you did it. So it's all about reading that JavaScript code and figuring out what you can do with it. Let's do a harder one. Let's do eval. Eval was a harder one. Hello user. So we need to use eval used on tainted data. Let's go to inspect and look for the code. Sources, eval. Okay, so it's got this eval. It's evals. That's what we're gonna look for. Eval and escape a message. So hello user. So what we need to do is I think with this one we need to create a iframe. So we need to look for iframe XSS, like so. And iframe XSS will help us exploit this. So we want to go that one there. So the message is hello, and obviously hello is in here in the user. So if you just go XSS here, doesn't say nothing. Where's this user? Hello user. So we do need an iframe. Load object eval, Okay, so there's obviously an object in our console that we need to modify. Is it XH? XH. Let's have a look at that. Okay, that didn't work. Eval used on tainted data. Let's have a look that up. And let's see what we can find. So it's good to research this sort of stuff to see what we can actually do. So let's have a look at this. Okay, so let's for Dome XSS. And eval, let's have a look at exploring. Tainted eval, tainted data, XSS. Which is probably not common in any sort of it's not really it's probably not common in bug bounties. Let's look at XSS tainted data. Should be here somewhere. Here we go. Let's have a look at this one. So okay, so website is on example.com. Okay, so let's look for a different one. This one's a little bit. This is not practical. Let's look for one in Portsmouth because they're usually pretty good. Because they're usually ones that are pretty up to date. Eval is really old. Let's look for Portsmouth examples on Dome XSS. But Dome XSS is pretty fun to find. It's really hard. Probably one of the hardest XSSs, but it's good fun. Academy. Let's go to cross-site scripting. Let's go to Dome XSS. Perfect. Let's just do the very first one. Let's do location search. These are good to play around with too. These are really good to play around with and try and muck around and practice your skills. Portswig examples are really good. Let's load that into our Firefox. Now, something you need to realize is like server-side issues cannot be found in JavaScript. You can look for server-side requests, but server-side issues can't really be found in JavaScript. Server-side requests will lead to server-side issues, but you can't find like XSE or SSRF in JavaScript code. But with Dome XSS, there's not much scanners you can use to find that. Like scanners do work, but they're really inefficient. It's best to manually test for Dome XSS. And there is tools I'll show you how to use to find XSS as well. Not Dome, but normal XSS. So yeah, okay, let's analyze this code. So I've opened up the page and I'm going to analyze the code. So let's go to debugger and let's load our resources and lab header, is it? No, it's not lab header. It is. Let's do that. Search for it. And let's load in here. Because I couldn't find nothing there. What? Oh, okay, because remember in the proxy I had ASDF as the tag. Okay, so obviously if you look at that, inspect element, remember ASDF in the proxy was the XSS payload. So if you look at the inspector now, you'll see that if I load the script, search, just wait. Gonna try and find this. Gonna do it without like doing that. Okay, let's just go 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. Let's go 1, 1, 1. I just want to show you. I don't want to show you with burp. I wanted to show you manually. So let's inspect element. Go to debugger and look for the page index. I'm assuming. And obviously, see here, it's got query, new URL search parameters, window location search, .get search, and this is where the vulnerability exists. Actually, sorry, the vulnerability exists right there. So, track search, the query we pass in, will present an image, search terms, and a query gets appended here. So there's concatenation and there's no users applied, like no filtering. That's bad. This is vulnerable. Okay, let's look for a different one. That was too easy. We need a harder one. Let's go to the next one. And then I'll show you one stored, and then we'll wrap it up with some mitigations and some basic tools to use. Let's look at inner HTML. That's not solved yet. Inner HTML location search. This is going to be a challenge. Let's find out if we can do it. Okay. To search for something. We search for something. Let's go to inspect element and look at the code. And we're looking for inner HTML. So obviously the same thing. Inner HTML is setting directly to query without any filtering or sanitization. This is not vulnerable, but that is. So what I should be able to do is send a message. Look for send a message in our inspector. And where is that actually presented in code? It's actually in search results. Okay, so again, all we need to do is type in ASDF, which our proxy has our payload put in, and it should inject our JavaScript code. But no, it hasn't. So obviously, if we go to burp, we'll test this out, and we'll find that there is filtering involved. So let's go to, let's just type in script alert 1, and you'll find that it has some sort of filtering. So we set it up in our proxy, we send it to the repeater, and we go. And we'll just go, at the very start, we'll go ASDF, just so we can filter it out, search for it. So we go ASDF, and as you can see, it is all being filtered. So this is not vulnerable. This parameter especially, query is not vulnerable. ASDF. Okay, so it's not presented in the response. That means we need to do a hash bang. So that means we need to go hash and then do that. Not presenting a response, usually it's that we need to do. Is it in the console? Because console is a good way to debug XSS. Let's go to console. Let's just put that over here. And let's type in ASDF. And let's reload the page. Let's have a look at the code again. Might be somewhere different. Told you this one would be a bit of a challenge. It's pretty tricky. Debugger, index. It's definitely vulnerable. Let's look at something different. No, it's definitely vulnerable. In HTML, so we need to do HTML first. Not just directly JavaScript. So let's go. Let's have a look in inspector. Let's put that aside over there. And let's put that there. That there. That there. Cool. So, okay, so our max length is, if we just show you here, the max length of the characters I can type in is 600, and the search blog we want to put in our search field, search form, something different. So let's go that, sorry. Let's go ASDF and see that gets injected. I'm going to search for ASDF. It's right there. Cool. Let's go that. And let's have a look there. Main container, search, message, and we've got script there. Okay, so we need to go. Do we need to go span maybe? If we go span, and then go script alert 1 span, because it needs some JavaScript code, some HTML code first. Let's have a look at that. Is that going to be like another span tag? Perfect, it did. Okay, cool. Reload the page. Location search inner.html. And it's printed there too. Okay, it's getting injected. We just need to find out a way to maybe we can do, instead of going span, let's go again ASDF instead of the proxy, so we can do it in a proxy, because it's doing XSS, so we can't really do it in a proxy, which sucks. Yeah. Okay. Let's have a look at the code again. So in HTML query, search message. Let's take a look at inner HTML payloads. Inner HTML payloads, XSS payloads. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at image source. Maybe it'll work. Image source is another payload that usually works. Let's do that one. We did it. Awesome. We did it. So image, we needed a different payload, and it worked. Awesome. So that worked. So I needed the image tag. Perfect. Awesome. We did it. Okay. So let's wrap it up with some mitigations. So mitigations are very important to counteract XSS cross-site scripting. XSS mitigations, and generally they consist of filtering user-supplied input and encoding user-supplied input, blacklisting like certain special characters like these. You need to make sure you blacklist these ones here, blacklist those. Your own code, user supplied input, and so you want to your own code. Oops. You want to basically your own code these. You want to your own code these characters. You want to make sure you actually want to blacklist these, or your own code them. Your own code them, and then you want to also have some sort of WAF, which stands for a web application firewall. And you want a really strong WAF, and you want to HTML code them. It's all about encoding and using the right functions. You don't want to use you don't want to use unescape. You want to use the right functions too. So when you're programming a a web application, you want to look up to see what functions are safe. So if you look at, like, say, bad encoding functions, so JavaScript, so go vulnerable JavaScript functions, it will pop up some functions that you do not use, like eval or things like that. So ones you don't use would be location-based, client-side storage, navigation-based, cross-domain functions, things like that. So you wouldn't use XHR cause post messages. There's a DOM XSS. Post message you do try and avoid. Things like that. So functions like that you do not use. Also, like, all this, all of these. This website here would tell you what to do too. All the functions that you use. Some really good tools you can use is XSS Hunter for blind XSS. Same thing goes with, so sometimes you might find an XSS payload, XSS vulnerability, but it might not be reflected back, so you need to use blind payloads. So for instance, you might want to go to XSS Hunter. I need to sign in first, so use XSS Hunter, which is good for blind XSS, and you just go to payloads, and you inject that into the vulnerable parameter, and it will fire up an XSS payload and print it here. I could probably show you that in one, so let's show you that in this one here. So let's go to one of these examples. Let's go here and do that. Now let's go here. Remember, it's an image one, so we need to use an image one. So be that one there. See if it works. Sometimes you get an email too. You get an email with if it found something. Let's have a look. Found something? It might not, so you might need to look for reflected XSS, but this one might not work. I did inject it. So that's good. So it means it will work. Just needs to wait until, I guess, it works. Just wait. I'm just need to reload the page. Okay, well, this one probably isn't vulnerable to blind XSS. Should be. Image, video. But yeah, sometimes blind XSS payloads are really good too. So it's good to use XSS Hunter. And other tools are, and blind XSS are very common too. So if you've got a payload, like an XSS vulnerability isn't reflected in response, try XSS Hunter and it might work. Sometimes you only are required to only specify, like say 8 characters, so you need a very small payload for that, and blind XSS is good for that. So another website to go to is Payload of All Things, and this is really good for finding out what payload to use for a specific vulnerability. So I'll show you that, which is under XSS. I'm also going to show you one more thing before we wrap it up. Well, 2 more things before we wrap it up is a website to go to for mitigations, and also a way to fuzz for XSS vulnerabilities in burp. So this is a good one to look up for XSS payloads. I'm going to have all these in the Patreon page. Now, one more thing for mitigations, you can just go to mitigations XSS, and there'd be a WASP one section. So WASP is good, and also in the report, make sure you specify the mitigations. If you find one in a bug bounty program, make sure you specify the mitigations in the report, or where to go to look for the mitigations, because some companies have no friggin' idea how to mitigate a XSS vulnerability. It's good to give them that extra advice, and extra help. So this is another website to help you mitigate XSS. Really good. So you'd put that in the report if you found one. And one more, I'm going to show you a stored stored XSS, but this time we get a fuzz for it. And that would wrap it up about, I reckon. It's pretty much everything you need to know about XSS. XSS, a lot of people find it these days. I try and avoid it because it's so many people trying to find them because they give you a few extra dollars. But it's so common. People find it all the time. A lot of the times they'll be duped if you find one. So let's do stored. Again, stored is very bad because it gets stored on the server side. Let's do stored XSS. And let's do this one here. Access lab. This time we get a fuzz for it. So fuzzing's good for any sort of XSS vulnerability. And a good thing is there's a good word list called sec lists. I think it's called sec lists on GitHub, which has a whole heap of XSS payloads you can try out. So, you know, discovery, fuzzing, and then XSS. Really good, this website. I'll put that in the description too. So let's find a stored XSS. Let's go to view post. Actually, let me do it here. Let's go to view post, because obviously stored XSS is somewhere where we're posting to the server. So for an example, right there would be XSS. Let's just type in, well, if we type in ASDF, it will probably work. But we just want to basically show you how to fuzz it. Put that in all the parameters, because we want to fuzz all these parameters. Let's post that. That would be a post request. Perfect, it is post request. It's got CSRF protection, but that doesn't stop you from exploiting through XSS. Let's send that to the intruder. We can also use Turbo Intruder, which is good. But this is what we'll use that later on when we do SSRF, because I found some blind SSRF using it's Turbo Intruder. So send it to intruder, and we'll remove that variable. So these are variables. So these where you want to inject our payloads are called placeholders or variables. So if you don't want CSRF, sorry, but if you wanted to inject our payload there, you double click on that and go add, and it'll add a placeholder for where our payloads will be stored. So let's go to sniper, but let's do battering ram, and let's choose our seclist payloads. So let's go to, we'll just for an example case, we can use seclist payloads, but we'll just do a basic XSS payload from our default burp. And let's do, we don't want to Euro encode them. And we want to set the threads to 100. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's start that off. And we'll want to compare the responses and stuff. And what this is how we will find it. So this didn't work because of the 400 status code, meaning it's basically a bad request. So that didn't work. We're going to look for 200s. No 200s. So let's just reduce the amount of payload. So let's go clear and just do comment. And let's do it now. So we're looking for 200 OKs. Or ones with different lengths. So I think most of these worked. Yeah, most of these worked because let's actually send that to the repeater and then fetch that. Go, send it to the server, and let's forward it off and see if it worked. Ha! Lab solved. So obviously it injected the payload. Let's have a look for the payload. So what was it? Script. Let's do it manually. It worked though. So let's put our payload. But the fuzzing worked. As you can see, it worked. Alert 1. Because we can look for 302s because it will redirect to it too. Okay, so that's our payload. Let's forward that off to the repeater, and let's see if it actually worked as well. We have to follow redirection. We have to go alert So obviously it doesn't get reflected back because it's on the server, but it worked. Forward that off, send it, and we should get XSS that should inject that payload into the server. Perfect, it worked. So fuzzing's really good too. And you know, it's just keep at it and just try and practice. Keep on trying to find XSS. Keep on practice all these port swig labs, and you will be a pro. There's also things called XSS Strike, which is another tool. Another tool that you can use to help with XSS vulnerabilities. And to create, I've got a tool called XSS Killer, I think it is. And this is one I created. It's on ethical hacking playground. And I'll show you my code and how it works. So I think it's called, I'll just type in XSS. Sorry, I have to show you a few more things. I have to show you some Google Doc searching. So let's go to XSS Pwn. That's mine I made. Now, how this works, right, is if you go to my script, what it does, this works by fuzzing the parameters that you want to test for, but in the source, it's got this this class called fuzzer, and the fuzzer class has you know, it also has the option to detect a WAF, but it also has the fuzz. So what happens is where is it? It uses this this method that helps you find XSS. Where is it? Yeah, so this is where you want to. This is how you check for XSS in your Python script. If payload.lower is in the response text.lower, that means that it actually is going to be a vulnerable XSS payload. It's going to be vulnerable to XSS. So we have a payload list. Read it in. We get the URL with the payload in it, and then we just print out testing, and then it will be payload is in there somewhere, and it gets reflected in there. And it's vulnerable. It appends the vulns. But I'm going to go through over through some Python later on in the tutorials. So that's good to use. That's good to look at too, to understand how to create your own XSS scanner. And so Google Doc searches, they're pretty good. So what you need to do for that is like do things like this. So you might go site, go to Google, might go site, example.com, and you might go something like, if in the URL there is a name equals, test for XSS there, and make sure that it has a question mark, meaning it's a parameter. Things like that will help you find XSS. Obviously, there's no results whatsoever. Let's try Twitter. Okay, so there's a name parameter there, so check for XSS there, but it's not going to be vulnerable, I would assume. And also there's websites to go to find Google Doc searches for XSS. Searches XSS. And they help you with lots of searches you can use to find XSS. So these are good ones, but you want to make sure that you use site too as well. So you want to make sure you go, for example, keyword. You want to make sure you go site. You know, the site you're testing bug bounties. You want to make sure you go site example.com and then put that in. You know what? If you just if you do that, it's going to just filter it with that website too. But if you just go in URL and do that Google Doc there, it's going to search for everything. So for example, you click on that, that's probably going to be vulnerable to XSS because it's somewhere on the web. Let's try it out. Let's go. We shouldn't probably do this, but we'll just give it a shot. Let's go keyword and let's inject our XSS payload into this website. Think of this as a bounty program. Okay, so it's got a firewall we blocked, so we have to try and find a WAF bypass. Let's turn on no XSS and let's reload the page. Obviously, it's blocked. We can figure out bypasses for that, but I'm not going to go too much into that. Let's find a different one. So you'd go, say this one here, and you would search. You do it in this one. And all the techniques I showed you before, you'd use in this sort of situation. So this is vulnerable. It's vulnerable. So all tech marine is vulnerable to XSS, but this is just for practice. Don't actually do it yourself, because that's a website I haven't got permission to hack. So just make sure you do not do anything bad to that website. So yeah, that's pretty much it for XSS. I hope you guys enjoyed it. That's a very, very big advanced tutorial on how to find XSS. Very, very big tutorial. That probably went for over 2 hours. I'm not sure, but yeah, cheers guys, and I have everything in the Patreon post, and I hope you can practice, hope you can get really good at it, and I will see you later in the next one, probably about SSRF. One thing before I go, I just want to show you how to use XSS. So what you do is you go into Verb, and you pretty much spider all the hosts, all the links, and you'll copy all these links here, and copy the selected links into a file. And the file that it has to be called hosts.txt. So you go to the directory that has the XSS auto tool, and you paste it in. I'm not going to paste it in just yet. You paste all the links like that, all the parameters, and save it. Then you would go into then you would have like go to a Firefox browser. It only works in Firefox. You type in about double-click load. Then you want to go here and then go to this Firefox and load temporary add-on. Then you want to choose my background.js. And then what you want to do is pretty much log into XSS or no XSS. But then you want to press that XSS button up there in the corner, that one there, and that will then start loading the pages and checking for XSS. So when it will do is you press that, let it load, and it will just load each page. Make sure you got no XSS turned on at the same time, and it will go through each page testing out the cross-site script. And it waits like about 5 seconds or 5 seconds to load each page, testing for XSS. That's a tool that I use and I've found XSS in about 1 minute. So I hope you enjoyed that video. That was a very long, comprehensive video on cross-site scripting. It went on all different subjects, and XSS is still the #1 common vulnerability these days. So just maybe try and just dive into a bug bounty program and try and do it. You'll probably find one. So when I first started my bug bounty hunting on Hacking and Bug Crowd, it took me probably 3 or 4 months or even 6 months to find XSS. I was almost about to give up, but I'm like, nope, I'm persistent, I love doing what I do. And I found them. And then I moved on to more advanced topics like server-side issues. And that's what we'll be covering later on. So please enjoy the rest of your morning or afternoon or night, and I'll see you in the next one coming up soon.